It is always a privilege to talk about our Constitution. I've often said, in word, written, and oral, how important our Constitution is. Of course, I'm available and open to debates about whether it is sufficiently useful for a transformative project. But the fact remains, and this is quite important, it seeks to encapsulate, indeed, in my view, centuries of exclusion, of oppression, to formulate all of these desires for a changed society in beautiful words, but very precise, in other instances, words, in order to give us a pathway for a changed and just society. Now, this we cannot possibly do in an open-ended way. You need ground rules. You need to agree values. And you need to have these values entrenched in the laws that we make, and ultimately the decisions that courts make, and the way that the executive conducts itself. And these values, we find them in our Constitution. Despite much that's been said lately, it remains a very fine Constitution. And I think it is not unreasonable to invite many of us to go and look at the work that the Constitutional Court has done in the last, since its inception indeed, from 1995, and go and look at the work that it has produced. And this work principally was to formulate a deep understanding of the Constitution, giving it life, giving it the kind of verve that actually would open up spaces for a different, better, and qualitative life. Now, you would say to me, of course, the Constitution, and so too our jurisprudence, has obvious limitations. Well, I'm uncertain about obvious limitations, but the real question, and I've asked this in another instance in the past, is whether we have stretched all the possibilities which are present currently in our Constitution. It's less about the need to amend it in order to meet what might be our new idealized goals, but rather to thoughtfully work through those matters which would remain important for us. Let me be a little more specific. I do think that the obvious thing should happen. We should continue to praise and praise the Constitution. We should continue to feed our young on its values. The values are abiding, and the values are deeply rooted in our own societies. They have deep African origins in Ubuntu and our notions of goodness. They values hold in them both notions of personal agency and collective or public agency. And all of those values, and indeed the provisions, rights and entitlements in our Constitution, remain very, very vital. But Luando earlier asked me and said, but what about the next 21 years? And this is something I would have wanted to be there, share with you, present, and debate. Frankly, nobody knows what would happen in the next 21 years, but let me tell you a few of my wishes. One, we should not allow any one of us to have a continued, stale, and unwelcome stay in the stakes of leadership, whether in the judiciary, in a political economy, or in civil society generally. we truly should allow youthful ventilation of those spaces, allow new, young, vibrant people to begin to criticize what we have done in the past and to introduce new ways in which we could implement the covenant that is our Constitution. So we need commitment of young people. And this we should do by listening, engaging them, and taking on board what may sound like outlying, revolutionary and threatening notions of a more transformed, more decolonized, and a more inclusive and progressive social economy. So that's the first point. We need to go and find those young people, infuse them with the values. We can't have transformation in an open space. That will be brutish, and that will never lead to real change in society. The second point, I think we should again reinstall the values that will allow us to create a truly progressive society, somewhat captured in the Constitution. And that society is going to require us to resist all of the prostitution of the vital things that we have fought for, that we've put in place, and that we should continue to fight for. So for me, the second important thing, therefore, is those values must again be put where they belong. And some are humble pie, they're uncomplicated. Thinking about the future, creating a vision, taking honest and concrete steps to achieve that vision, resisting bullies, working hard, continue to show compassion, particularly for the most vulnerable in our society. For the last 30 days of hearing, you have all been, and I have been, exposed to incredible levels of uncaring, heartless treatment of the most vulnerable end of us. And in many ways, we ought, as a demand, should remind us how we should go and reach out to our humanity. We have to go and pick up our humanity shattered on the ground as it is, so too the values that are so vital. And again, in the public space, they must include what our foundational values in the Constitution are. Openness, sometimes called transparency, responsiveness, listening to the people and seeking to fulfill their deepest aspirations, and accountability, learning how to accept our wrongs, to confess them, and indeed to ensure that others make us to account for our misdeeds, but more hopefully for our helpful and useful deeds. And all of these would lead me to inevitably the third point, which I would like to make in passing. We must continue to re-examine what are the useful formations, social and political formations in our society. And what are those things that will help advance the cause? And from this, we should draw from some of our legends, like Archbishop Tutu, who you are rightly commemorating, and you are rightly remembering for his long life journey to find peace, to find honesty, to find hard work, to find goodness in us, and the collective goodness of a just and fair society. I wish you well in your deliberations, and I have no doubt these will be outstanding time for all who are involved. Thank you.